Hey guys, it's Felicia. I just want to take a few minutes before we start the show to give you a quick update about what's going on with me. Yay! So, if you haven't already heard, I'm back in corporate America. Yay! I'm getting paychecks. Yeah, so sister needed a job because this entrepreneurial thing. Yeah, we're just gonna keep it real. But it's week 3 when you will be hearing this. Right now I'm in the middle of week 2 recording this. And it has been a whirlwind, but things are going great. My boss is definitely a Hannah. We love Hannah. She definitely is amazing. I'm having a great time. I'm learning lots of new things. People are really nice. People act like they care about each other. Like, it's a breath of fresh air out here. And so I'm trying to use everything I've learned about over the course of these last 2 years and all the research I've done creating this podcast to help me manage my own career. So let's see if I can follow my own goddamn advice. Now, because I have been super busy, I haven't been able to talk to y'all. There may be some emails I haven't got to respond to. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get to it. I just moved across the country and started a new job. So I hope you guys can give me some grace. Bear with me. I'm going to respond to your email. I promise. You have not gone unnoticed. I just have been super, super busy trying to get my whole life together. And with that said, over the course of the next couple of weeks, maybe a couple of weeks, we'll see, I will be replaying remixes of season 2 episodes, the most listened to and downloaded episodes. Some of you guys who are new to the podcast probably haven't had a chance to hear these. The great thing is my editor, Chris, is going to make these episodes amazeballs and edit them because last season I was editing myself. Whew, child. If you go back and listen to them, you could tell. So, with no further ado, here is the most played episode that I have ever had. It's pretty amazing because it's with my B-School BFF, Tiffany, and we are talking about likability. Now, the title of the episode is Fuck Your Likeability, I'm gonna be my black ass self. But even after I've done this episode, what I learned is that I need to figure out how to be my best and most positive, authentic self. And that will actually get me further than anything else. But this is a great conversation, a lot to think about as far as how you show up in the workplace. We talk about relatability, likability, my angst with it, how I grapple with this whole idea of how do I be my authentic self when I can't be my black ass self at work. So it's a fun episode. I go back and listen to it periodically just for shits and giggles. I hope you enjoy it with all of Chris's sound design. It should be amazing. So if you love it, email me at ask@trillionba.com. Let me know if you like this episode, what you like about it. If you like any of the episodes, what you like about them. I welcome any feedback, critique, criticism. Just don't curse me out, y'all. That's all I ask. Aww. So I want you guys to have a great week. Remember, you are awesome. Forget what anybody says. You rock. All you got to do is do your best, because that's all I'm doing. I'm just doing my best and let God take care of the rest. So until next week, hopefully next week will be a new episode and not a remix episode, but we'll see. Don't hold me to it. But I love you guys. Thank you for listening to the show. Now let's start this remix. Welcome to the Trill MBA show. I'm your host, the trillest MBA you will ever know, and I'm here to help you survive and thrive in corporate America by giving you the truth and being as real as only I can be. This topic is near and dear to my heart because it causes all of my anxiety about corporate America. Today, we're going to talk about the reason why you get promoted or the reason why you don't get promoted. And it all comes down to one thing: likability. Do they like you or do they not like you? And that's how they decide whether you get promoted. As Beyonce said, ain't that about a bitch? So today I brought back my B-School bestie because I felt like I needed somebody to pressure test this concept. And I do have Tiffany Samuels on the line. Tiffany.
Hello.
Thank you for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed our conversation, just baring our little souls to the whole wide internet the other day. And so
all the internet.
All the internets. Yes. I was going to do this as a solo episode, and I was just going to rant and rave and be mad all by myself. But I felt like I needed somebody that could give me some perspective because this whole idea makes me so angry. Because I feel like there's been so many times that people liked me at work, but it wasn't like the right people that liked me. And so I was doing my research about this whole idea of likability. And what I came up with was that there were so many articles and so many books about how to be more likable at work. And I was just like, this sucks, because everything was either about how do you change your behavior? So like, how to look people in the eye and be engaged when they talk and, all these things that you have to spend mental energy to think about so that people can be comfortable with you and like you so that you'll increase your likability. And then it talked about, there was one article from the Muse that talked about like 10 instant ways to be more likable. And it was links to more articles that talked about the 50 million things that you should be thinking about and doing so that more people would like you. So I just got overwhelmed with that. But then there was this Wall Street Journal article titled Why Likeability Matters More at Work. Now, this article was more talking about being likable via video conferencing and like social media. But some of this rang true, I thought, about how important it is in like a job interview to be likable and this likability factor. And like people are actually studying this. And it's just it just makes me feel icky because I bust my ass and I work hard. And if you don't like me to whatever degree that warrants, promotion or raises or accolades or what have you, then it doesn't matter how much work I do. Your ass just don't like me.
Well, we hear time and time again that as Black women or any non-majority group, right, that you do oftentimes have to work twice as hard, and that working hard and getting your job done and hitting your numbers and knocking it out the park that way, I feel like for us, that's just table stakes. And so you have to deal with this intangible factor of likability. So I'm excited to talk about it today, and I hope that I learned from you, because I can't say I've mastered it, but I do know that it's important because I've actually had the opportunity to sit in on calibrations, and you hear this language that couched in things like, oh, well, I'm just not sure about this person. I don't know if they're a good fit, or I don't know if they would be good for this particular role, but they're never getting to like any meat, right? Like any specific examples. So I think it's a very timely topic, and excited to peel back the onion on it today.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have yet to formally manage people. And so I want to understand from you, being in those rooms, and if you could give like a broad, like, I don't know, you can't give specific examples clearly, but I think we've all heard those stories about the coded feedback, right? Like, describe a time where you were in the room and, I don't know, did you felt like you could push back and say, well, what does that mean? Or did you just have to be a silent observer?
No, I think your responsibility as a manager is to push back. And if you're worth your salt as a manager, you're definitely trying to defend your people in that calibration. But you're also pressure testing what people say about other people, because it's very easy to give very vague language. And let's be real, managers, they're busy people too. They're working managers, and oftentimes they just don't take the time to prepare for these. But to me, I take calibration as a very serious thing, because people's careers are at stake, their movement within the organization. So I take a lot of time to prep for that type of thing. But I think it's everybody's responsibility in the room to make sure that we're not talking about vague things and that we're talking about specifics. And it also helps if there's a strong HR person in the room that's not going to let the BS fly, right? Like, and really push people and keep it fair, right? And make sure that we're talking apples to apples and not apples to oranges in those calibrations.
But see, that's the problem. So basically you get in the room and you're comparing two different people to each other and pretending as if it's equal and fair.
Right.
That's so fucked up. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a friend one time, a long time ago. She found out that the feedback from her, and mind you, people are going to call me and be like, were you talking about me? Because there's a lot of people that this has happened to, that they've told me these stories, and that's fine. But just know, I'm not talking about you. So the feedback about this person was, I just don't think that people would want to talk to them. Like, they, are always not really smiling. Like, I don't think they're approachable, and I don't think they're agreeable. Like, it's just, they're like hard to work with from what I've seen. It's like, what does that mean? What do you mean it's hard to work with them? Well, I just feel like this person could change their approach. What does that mean? It's just, the soft skills. And I was like, what? So basically, this person, had went back and forth with the individual in the working setting or whatever. So basically, it's like this one person didn't like who was being calibrated about. And so this was their way of saying, hey, basically their likability is low from my opinion. And because this person was a loud person in the room, everybody was like, oh, okay, well, I guess, we'll have to reconsider this role for them, or up against these other people, then we should pick somebody else, even though that person was probably the best person for the role.
That's messed up. And what makes likability such a hard topic, I feel like you need like multiple episodes on this, is that it varies by the person. Like, we've seen it. You ever had a manager where you were a rock star in their eyes, and then you go report to someone else and they act like you're trash, like scum of the earth? And you're like, how did the pendulum swing that much? Like, I'm the same person, operating in the same way. Yeah. But things can change for good or for bad, like overnight, based on your team and based on who you're reporting into. So that adds another element to this. It's all so highly subjective.
Yes, and that's the problem. And then I think the other thing that really irks me is that I know I'm coming into this fighting against your unconscious bias or your conscious bias. You
microaggression.
Yeah, I'm coming in with you already having all these stereotypes about Black women. And it's so sad because if you ask these people if, maybe that's playing out in their decisions, they would be like, oh, no, I'm not a racist. I don't think like that. I wasn't raised like that. I'm educated. Girl, bye. They don't even know a Black person. This is the first time they've interacted with a Black person. And so
no, that's not true. They know 5, right? They can usually rattle off 5 or less. Like they have a Black neighbor or their kids go to school with somebody who has Black parents. Like typically they can name
girl,
their whole life.
Girl, listen, I have worked with people who told me I was the first Black person they had ever worked with or knew. You hear me?
I didn't know we were that exotic. Okay, how do I use this to my benefit then?
And so that's what I really want to get to is like, okay, so I'm already walking into Lord knows what when I come into this company.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I do? Which again makes me angry because like, why is the onus on me to make me like you? But unfortunately it is. And I learned this when I had a manager. It's funny. So you talked about like you have a manager and you're doing like great work and you're getting along with that manager and you're having a great time. And then that manager leaves and you get a new manager. And then all of a sudden your work isn't good enough. And all of a sudden, I literally got this feedback from a manager one time. This, I won't describe, but this person said, and I quote, "Your facial expressions make me uncomfortable and you make me uncomfortable." Now, this was in my end of year feedback.
Oh, wow. I mean, were you like growling at the person or like punching them? Like,
No. I wish Black Panther had been out so I could actually have started barking at his ass. Like, I wish I had barked at him in that moment.
Oh, gosh. That probably would have been your last day, but hey,
I wouldn't have.
That's the option.
Listen, you know how I keep my accounts.
Well, hey.
If you learn nothing from this podcast, start a fuck you savings account today so that you can always tell these companies, fuck you, I'm out, and not feel a way about it.
That's real.
Please do that. But yeah, and I wanted to start crying because what am I supposed to do? Like, how is that actionable? And the thing is, I have been trying so hard to get this dude to like me. And it's so sad how much energy I wasted and how I could have been focusing on my workload, but I was so busy catering to this dude's little ego with his short ass that I got to the point where I wasn't doing my best work because I was so busy worried about what you thought about me because it mattered so fucking much because I was trying to get promoted.
Because these conversations that happen in the calibration, I don't think people would admit to them coming down to likability conversations, but oftentimes they are because how many times have we seen people who have not delivered results or mediocre results at best? They still get promoted. And I get it. Sometimes you could just be put on a dog of business, been there, and no matter where you come from, you could be Beyonce herself, you could be Jesus, like you're probably not going to be able to turn it around. I get that. But in general, some people just don't have a track record of results, but yet they still keep climbing the corporate ladder. Like, how does that work?
Because they manage up. And that, I think, is the key to likability, is that you create this image that you're this amazing person. And then once you do that with the right person, you get an opportunity, like a work-related opportunity, like a special project for the president, or, something that stretches you. And then that person likes you so much, they make sure that you knock that project out the park. So it's not like, oh, we'll do this special project and then you'll get promoted and I'm going to leave you to your own devices. Oh, no. Now that person has put their name on the line to get you the special project. So now they're invested. So they're going to make sure that you don't fail. I know.
So I'm curious, Felicia, like, what do you think it is that these people who get kind of ushered through corporate, like, what are they doing? Like, what's the do different that they do? Or is it, let's be provocative, is it that they're the right race to get these opportunities? Like, what is it?
That's what it feels like. But
I don't want that to be a cop-out, right? Like, because at the end of the day, we know as Black women, we still get it done regardless. Always. Even with all the strikes and the adversity against us.
Listen, so something that I think we had talked about before, when you look at people, like, take it back to elementary school. Mm-hmm. When you, or even like K through 12, when you ate lunch, who'd you eat lunch with?
The same people every day.
Right. And did those people look like you?
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for me, I feel like I was a bit of an outlier because, and some people can probably relate to this, I was the smart Black kid at my school. So I made friends with the people who were in my class, but I wasn't particularly close, I don't think, with anybody. And I was always around, and I had like 2 or 3 like really close friends, and they didn't necessarily look like me, but there was just this way we related to each other. Like, we really got each other. And so we were friends, and they liked me for exactly who I was, and I liked them for exactly who they were. But outside of that, I wasn't really checking for new friends. Mm-hmm. And I was cool with you, but you didn't get in my circle. Mm-hmm. So seeing that corporate America is just a grown-up playground,
pretty much
grown-up lunchroom, right? Is it that white people don't like us just because they can't see themselves in us?
For me, it's like the nuance between likability and relatability. And for me, the crux of it, I think, is really more of a relatability issue. Because you kind of have to be a straight-up buffoon to be unlikable on the surface, right? Like, if you're going through the office punching people out, yeah, you're probably not likable. But in general, most of us, not all, but most, can be cordial enough, right, to navigate the office and the water cooler and be decent human beings to one another. Of course, you get the people who just act a fool. There's nothing we can do about that. But it's that next level of, like, I can relate to you. And then that fact of being able to relate to you means I trust you, which means I'm going to get you in the inner circle. I'm going to share pertinent information with you. I'm going to look out for you. And I feel like for me, just speaking for myself, that's where I've had a tougher time in corporate, is getting to that relatability place. Like, I don't think of course, there's some haters, right? Of course, people didn't like me, but in general, if you poll people, I would say, yeah, I like Tiffany. But would they say I can relate to her and I can see her in XYZ roles? Maybe not. And so for me, as I prepare to potentially go back into corporate, how do I play up this relatability piece? Like, what can I do to be more relatable without losing myself? And being somebody who I'm not.
I'm glad you asked that question. So I have an article. You know, I'm good for these articles, girl. So there's an article, and I'm just loving this Harvard Business Review, these articles they do on leadership and managing people and race. So there's an article called Diversity and Authenticity. It's by Catherine W. Phillips, Tracy L. Dumas, and Nancy P. Rothbard. And I hope I didn't screw up anybody's name there. But basically, they start out with a story about Marcus. It's not his real name. And Marcus joins this leading international bank right out of college. And he believed, you know, what we've all been taught: put your head down, work hard, get those numbers, get the highest returns, bring home the most clients, keep your head down and get your work done. That was his strategy. And for years, that's exactly what he did. And he received awards. He did exemplary work on complex deals. And despite earning the best performance ratings in his group, he kept getting passed over for promotion. So one day, he worked up the nerve to ask his boss why. And this was the response: "You're really good at your job, but the problem is that the partners feel they don't really know you."
Yeah. In other words, they can't relate to you, Marcus.
They don't know you. And so Marcus acknowledged the criticism. I don't know. Is that criticism or is that just straight up like, hey, nigga, we don't know you?
Right. Like Mariah Carey.
Right.
I don't know you.
I don't know her.
It's truth from their perspective, right? They're just speaking their truth, that they don't feel like they know this person.
Right.
That's all I can say on that. That's what they thought. And if they're the decision maker, then, well, now we have a problem.
Right.
They don't know Marcus.
They don't know Marcus. So Marcus said he was afraid to open up. And I would say rightfully so. You should be very afraid. But he says here, so he worked to overcome that fear. He began seeking out lunches and other social opportunities with partners and finding common areas of interest, such as children, college sports, fantasy sports, and new restaurants. He began talking more openly about his life outside of the office, a key to building relationships. Once I did that, things started to turn around, Marcus says. Today, Marcus is a managing partner. Listen, I don't know about you, but what I've always been taught is you don't give these folks information. You don't tell them your business. What you do outside work stays outside work. What you do at home stays at home, because they're going to come back and they're going to use these things against you. So it's funny because this article actually mentions, it's funny because they try to say, like, it says, I got to read this part. This is funny. It says, nothing in that series of events makes it obvious that Marcus is African American. I'm like, when I first read it, his name was Marcus. How many white Marcuses do you know?
I mean, you
right.
can go by Mark.
Had they put Mark, then I would have been like, oh, but Marcus? Oh, nah. I know who Marcus is.
Like the Marcus or La Marcus. Like that would have been a big giveaway, right?
It probably is DeMarcus. He probably dropped it. He is in banking. So maybe for non-Black people reading this article, it wasn't obvious that Marcus was Black, but I knew Marcus was Black. And so it says, he is, in our experience, backed up by our research, his ethnicity played a role in his discomfort with opening up at work. Just like Marcus, many other minorities fail to understand that their career mobility can be affected by their colleagues' feeling of familiarity or closeness with them. And even for those who do understand this, building workplace relationships across racial barriers or boundaries can be difficult. Duh. It's funny. Like, really, why would you need research to, like, this is so obvious. What am I missing?
But I think it's so hard because a lot of the things that we were taught in our culture growing up, you know, a lot of the things that a Black mother instills in a Black child may not always necessarily play well in corporate. And I've learned this the hard way myself. Like the whole, what was my mom's favorite thing? Don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, which kind of speaks to like this separation of church and state between your work life and your home life. And like she drilled that into me. So I was Marcus. I would go to work. I would put in a lot of hours, head down. I would go to the happy hours and stuff, but more so because I felt like if I didn't go, I was going to get dinged, right? But I would try to be strategic. Like the first person who left, I was riding their coattail out the door. But hey, I checked the box. I showed up, folks. But I'm not staying here for like the after set, right? Like I'm going home because it's those interactions can just be tough. And a lot of times it's hard to insert yourself in the conversation when you just don't even know what they're talking about. I don't watch that type of TV program. I don't have kids that are in soccer. Like, how do I relate?
Yeah, and it's funny because I think for Black females, it's especially like us ambitious ones who aren't married, who don't have kids, like, you know, we out here hustling, we're securing bags. And so to go to these events and it's so awkward. Like it just feels so uncomfortable. Oh, it's so funny. And even the article talks about this, right? So it says, one reason these gatherings fail to help minorities bond with coworkers is the difficulty people have making small talk across racial lines. What am I supposed to say in these social networking settings? One Black female executive asked. How do I jump into the conversation when I often have no idea what they are talking about? I don't watch the same TV shows or the sports they are discussing. When the conversation turns to workplace gossip, minority employees say they may hold back because they lack the trusting relationships necessary to participate in exchanges that involve discreet backbiting or criticism of bosses. As one Black executive put it, I don't feel safe sharing information that might later be used against me. Because making conversation at these events can be challenging. Many minorities we interviewed say they intentionally arrive late and leave early. They put in an appearance, but no more. Amen, amen, clap, clap, clap. Now, the problem is we feel that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is not getting us where we're trying to go. So this is a problem. I don't know. What is this? This reminds me of something. I feel like I've seen this. Oh, Molly on Insecure.
Oh, yeah. Insecure. Yes.
This is exactly.
Like I love the show, by the way. I cannot wait for season 3.
Listen.
But that show is very relatable. I feel like the word of the day today. And I so feel Molly's pain because like she was a top performer at her law firm and she was trying. Like she was like, okay, got it. Head down, working hard is not enough. So I'm trying to build the relationship. She could have been anywhere, kicking it with Issa, taking a nap, whatever. But she's like, no, I'm going to go to this good hockey game and try to build these connections. And it just fell so flat. So why? Like, what happened? What could she have done differently, if anything?
I don't know. She did research. She laughed on cue. And it's funny because at the game, the partner seemed interested, right? Like he pretended. But when they got in the office and he was back and saw the young man who clearly in his eyes is the younger version of himself, it was like Molly could go put herself in the trash. So,
man,
This is the stuff that actually keeps me up at night. Because what's the solve? Like, this article goes on and it talks about strategies to reduce this stress. And it talks about, the structure of the organization. But at the end of the day, I feel like the answer was the onus is on the minority employee. It doesn't feel like the onus is on the majority or the company to change themselves too.
I would agree. And I think the tough pill to swallow here is that the onus is on everybody to manage their career, whether you're white, black, other, like you have to manage your career. I think that it's fair to acknowledge, though, that we have special challenges and special barriers being Black women in particular, or just people of color. And I think the organizations know it. I feel like a lot of them do task force and they have these D&I committees. Like they may try, but it seems like a lot of times the efforts are futile. And I think what's so hard is that a company can set a direction that we're going to be very inclusive, but that's only going to happen if every manager throughout the organization is practicing that. And at the end of the day, I just don't think that happens in a lot of organizations, and for whatever reason.
So listen, at my last gig, I was working on just this work, right? And so finally, and this was always a touchy subject, and we got to get alignment after alignment after. I mean, we were meeting with the CMO. We were meeting with senior leaders. We're saying, here's the problem, but here's what we're going to do to fix it, because we know that it's on us to fix it. Like, we had to couch everything and make them comfortable with what we were trying to accomplish. And it took us, we worked on this for over a year. Because one, it's not work. Like, it's like this work is long-term, build the organization work. The real work is meeting your number every quarter. Mm-hmm. And can't say that, this wasn't important work to them, because, that's what they would say. But honestly, like, they're so concerned with making the number, and they could really, truly care less how many minorities they have. They only care to the point that the organization has a target on their PDR on diversity metrics. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason why they care. If they didn't have that diversity metric target, it wouldn't even matter. I would look people in the eye and challenge them and call them bold-faced liars to their face if they tried to tell me that that's not true. No, it is. The only reason why you care and the only reason why you showing up is because it's on your PDR. Which, hey, call a spade a spade. Like, I don't care. But since it is on your PDR, let us help you figure this out. So at the end of, or where I left off or left it, was we created these small informal networks, which is funny because this is what this article is saying you should do to make the minorities more comfortable. So we had the underrepresented minorities meet with all the senior leaders in like little pods, and we set everything up and we bought breakfast, and we told them no work talk. You have to talk about where you're from, your family, like all those things that make you relatable to another human being. That's exactly what we do. And people came to us and like, why do we have to do that? Like, what is this really going to accomplish? We got that pushback from several leaders. So we want to have.
That's sad.
But then the funny thing was, we had a bunch of people show up because it was one of those okay, everybody else is doing it, so I guess I have to do it too.
And this is the leaders, you're saying.
Yes.
They have like peer pressure going on.
Yes. Yeah, girl, it was the saddest. And I reflect back on that a lot because I was so passionate about this project. Because I thought if we could just get you guys to see us and know us and not, then come and be like, oh, well, I don't know such and such or such doesn't have visibility. Because that was the big feedback that a lot of the diverse talent was getting is that, oh, people just don't know who you are. Now you over there busting your ass every goddamn day, but don't nobody know who you are.
Coming in early, working on weekends, working on vacation, working on the airplane. Yep.
Yeah. Man, the worst day for corporate Americans, all corporate Americans, was when planes got Wi-Fi. Because back in the day, at least you could take a break on the plane. You can take a nap. Not now. You better send that dick. Oh, I said
and the
dick.
Wi-Fi on the plane is never good.
No.
It's good speed. Like, this is a waste.
Oh, you know what's... Oh, one time I was on this plane and I was trying to do this PowerPoint. And I'm a bigger person, right? So, like, I already don't really have adequate room in economy. And so I got my laptop. I got it at an angle so I could type. And this woman is sitting in front of me and she just leans her ass all the way back.
Oh, no. That is the worst.
And I'm like, bitch. Like, my laptop closed on my fingers.
Oh, no.
And I was just like, Lord, help me.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had to politely, ma'am, excuse me. This is just rude. Can you put your seat up? I'm sorry. Yeah. And she did. It could have went worse, but I digress. Let's say you're at a good company. Like, I can say I've been at some really decent companies that have some decent people. And they do give you some wiggle room to say, hey, we have this problem and we do want to solve it. It's on my PDR. Do you want to work on it? And if you, Black woman, so choose to pick this up and take the torch, then know that you should start with getting your senior leaders to get to know the diversity talent that should be in the pipeline to director and senior director and VP level. That's what we need to do. That's what I'm going to suggest that we need to do. Now, the sad thing is that onus should not be on us. And it's just extra work from the work you're already doing. And it's a lot of running around, a lot of aligning. Ugh. But it can make a difference.
Yes, definitely. And I think, sometimes leaders, they lack empathy because they're under the gun, to deliver numbers. And they have all these competing priorities. So, I get it. But yeah, it's like there needs to be a champion for these issues to bring them to the forefront and then put the onus back on leadership to make positive changes in the organization. But I think so much of it is just day-to-day interactions. Like, I just wish we really did live by the golden rule of society, that we treated people the way we wanted to be treated. I would love that. That would be the utopia, right? Where we treated each other with decency and respect and inclusiveness. But that's not the reality of today.
No, the reality is that there are people who don't want to recognize that Black women are human beings, that people of color are people. That's the problem. If we could get people to recognize people's humanity, then you should be able to, on a very basic level, see somebody and relate to them as a human being. But because we live in this society and we have all this baggage. We have baggage we don't even, first of all, we try to ignore it or not address it or act like it's not there. And one thing I like about this article is at the end, in the conclusion, it says, color blindness is not a solution. Like, that's not the answer. So trying to act like, oh, we're all the same, that's not the answer. But if you try to have a fundamental understanding that, hey, we are all human beings and we all bring unique things to the table, then that's the start, in my opinion. But that takes everybody to do that, not just the minority talent begging you to see them because you say they're not visible. Did you ever get that feedback? You're not visible enough?
Yeah, I have got that. And it's always like funny. I kind of chuckle. So I'm like, well, what does that mean? Does it mean like I'm like transparent today? Do I look like Casper? Like, what do you mean I'm not visible? I'm like, right here, you can see me. Boo. Hey. Hello. Again, that's one of those like coded pieces of feedback. And this is where I think the onus is on both the employee, but also the manager and the organization at large. Okay, yes, there are things that I can do to be more visible. I can always make sure that I have a point of view. I can show up. I can be engaged. Absolutely agree with that. But you also need to give me the opportunities to show you what I can do. And that's a whole other conversation. I think sometimes people, especially minorities, get the non-preferred assignments that require a lot of grunt work, but not the right level of visibility to the right people. There was actually another great HBS article on that came out last week about that very thing, that a lot of times minority talent gets saddled with the office work or things like what you were talking about, the D&I initiative, which is very important.
Right.
But these aren't the things that get people promoted per se.
Nope. And nope. Not at all. So one thing I will say, if anybody out there does decide to take on some diversity and inclusion work for your company as extra work, as extracurricular people project, try to get some non-Black and Hispanic people to work with you. Like, try to partner with one of your Caucasian colleagues, because I really feel like the work would go further. So find some white woman that, you know, is all about this hashtag Me Too. Like, hey, girl, me too. Come on. Because, I mean, you would go further. I feel like if I could go back and do, you know, my project over again, we would have had a third partner and she wouldn't have looked like us. That way she could have been relatable to the senior leaders.
You have to have a champion for these types of things, or else it's a lot of great work, a lot of great thinking, but it doesn't get legs in the organization and things don't change. So I definitely agree. You got to identify who that champion is that can plead your case in the right channels.
Exactly. So
it all just comes down to corporate. To me, it's just really one big game. And it's an opt-in, opt-out situation. That's one of my favorite things. It's got me in trouble on a personal level, but that's neither here nor there.
Yes, boyfriends do not want to hear that you're going to opt out.
Yeah, that hasn't worked out so well for me. But that's a different podcast. That's not this one. So, yeah. In corporate speak, let's just table that for now.
Yes, speaking of corporate speak of the week, so my word for this week is authentic self. I really, really hate this phrase because I can be my genuine and palatable self. So I can bring my corporate self to work, you know, Felicia on a 1. But if I bring Trill NBA to work, it's going to be some problems.
Yeah, you just probably wouldn't have a job.
No, I cannot be my authentic self and survive in corporate America. Let's be real clear. So this whole idea of authentic self, I would rather they said, why don't you just be genuine I think that's a better word. Or, I love this. Some people will say, well, just be your best authentic self. And I'm like, my best authentic self curses and says the word nigga a lot. So I don't think you want that person here either.
Oh, God. Yeah, that probably wouldn't play too well.
Right. But at the end of the day, I have tried to be somebody else all the time. I have walked on so many eggshells. And at this point, I'm starting to realize that corporate America has put me in a mindset to make me not like myself or to make me feel like I'm not good enough. And I'm tired because I am good enough. And I like my Black ass self. So I feel like I'm damned if I do or I'm damned if I don't anyway. So I'm just going to be my Black ass self. And I feel like I have somebody to look up to. So Bozoma, I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm so terrible. Bozoma St. John. She is the chief brand officer at Uber. And I follow her on Instagram. And she gave me life this week when she posted where she took a conference call, a video call, and she had her bonnet half on. And she took a picture and she posted it. And I was like, you are a badass. You are corporate Khaleesi. You are everything that I want to be in corporate America. And if I can just be my best melanated self, then maybe I will go make another company multiple millions of dollars because that's what I do, because I make plan. But right now, I'm just going to be my Black ass self and I'm going to be the Trill MBA and I'm going to be happy. And I would advise you guys at the end of the day, just try it out. Be your Black ass self. See what happens.
Yeah. So I don't typically curse. I guess I would say it another way, but it's true. Like, just, if you have to put on a full-on Emmy-winning performance every day, that just gets really taxing. And while I'm not a big fan of just job hopping for the sake of job hopping, because that's a lot of work and always restarting the clock, sometimes you might have to, though. Like, if you've tried everything that was kind of suggested in the article, if you're being a decent human being, you're doing good work, you're doing these extracurriculars, you're going to the happy hours, you're trying to build relationships in the organization. And if all of that is just for naught at a particular place, they're not the only game in town. And I think it's okay to find a place where your genuine self, authentic self, whatever you want to call it, will be more appreciated. I think it's hard to say that it'll be fully appreciated because I agree with you, that whole bring your authentic self to work. I'm like, but I do think there's levels to it. And some places are just a bit more toxic than others.
Yes, you definitely have to find a place where you are loved. Like, we have a friend now. I'll say her name because she's awesome. Alex Merritt, also known as the Love Engineer.
Yeah, she is amazing.
She is amazing. And where she works, they love her. Like, LO to the VE, love her. Like, Beyonce love her, right? If I could find that, I would stay. I wouldn't leave. I'd be like, y'all love me? I love y'all. Ooh.
And run me these checks.
Right. Run me these checks. I will work. And that's the crazy thing. If you show me you care about me, I will work till I'm falling out dead because I want to honor that. Right. Like, that's how we're taught. And so the fact that these companies hate us and shit on us, even though they keep hiring us, it's like, if you only knew, if you took care of our emotional well-being in this space, we will make y'all so much money. But y'all over here passing us over for promotions, scared of our greatness and our Black girl magic, telling us that either we don't have strategic leadership or strategic power horse, whatever, some strategic bullshit feedback, or some, oh, well, you don't have the analytical prowess, or I'm not seeing the analytics from you.
Yeah. Where is your executive presence?
Oh, yes.
You're not visible. Like, there's like a long list of people.
Right. Or the how. It's not that you're not getting the work. Like, you're doing great work, but it's the how. Like, what you mean? Well, like, sometimes you make people uncomfortable. Now, mind you, this is Felicia on a 1. So this ain't the Trill NBA. This is Felicia with the Becky voice at work. Still, I make them uncomfortable. I can't help it. I'm a 6'8". I am 5'8".
No, ma'am.
I can't help it. I'm a 5'8", Black woman with wonderful, hot buttered rolls for you.
I can't.
I can't help that. Okay. And I'm sorry that all that makes you uncomfortable.
Oh,
so, yeah. Let's wrap up with some nuggets from the show. One thing we know, table stakes are higher for us, and performance is a must do. So we're not really talking to you people that's like doing the least. We're not talking to y'all. We've always done the most in our roles. So if you out here doing the least, girl, bye. But for those who've always done the most, you really have to not be afraid to leave when you see this isn't working. Put your mental and emotional health before a paycheck. That's most important.
Absolutely. I agree.
And then even if you're happy where you are, still go out there and interview. I'll throw up, there's an article that talks about after 3 years of being in a company, you're losing money if you stay. Just by virtue of like the merit increases and raises are like less than 2% these days on average. So you're losing money. So keep your resume ready, like stay ready so you don't have to get ready and go out there and prosper. Yeah.
It's just good career management. Because again, like everything that we're talking about, for all the unfairness of it all, at the end of the day, it's up to us to manage our careers. It's up to us to opt into this system called corporate America or opt out and do something totally different. Like the power is yours. But if you're going to opt in, you got to play the game. I feel like I said this on the last episode.
Yeah, you do have to play the game. Yeah, you have to play the game if you're going to stay, because you're trying to maximize your money. Like, why go through all this stress and all this bullshit if you're not securing bags?
Right.
You might as well run and do something else. So, any last minute thoughts? So Tiffany is the introverted version of me. So where she may not curse on the outside, in her head is a very trill voice. Like, don't let...
It is. I just work really hard to filter it out, I'm not trying to go to jail or anything like that. So I just keep this, very calming nature to me.
What's going on in your head?
That's for me to know. And for y'all to hopefully never find out.
Oh, okay. Well, on that note, I will see y'all next week. Keep it trill, y'all.
The Trill NBA Show is a Fair World Corp. LLC production. Executive produced by Felicia and Rose Inuha. Sound design and editing by Chris Mann with Podshaper. Theme music is Kick Push by Ryan Little. Keep it trill every day, y'all.